Good. So what was the name of your movie? Title?
Roadblock.
Roadblock, okay. And when you think of that and say the movie name now, what emotional intensity are you?
Now 4 or 5.
Okay. But back then?
Definitely back then it was, I don't like to be late, and I knew I was going to be late, so this was compounding something I already didn't like, and I had dealt with that and thought, get there, I told him, and whatever. But then all of a sudden, every eastbound street was blocked, and we'd go down 2 blocks, and this guy, the driver, was getting frustrated.
Yeah. Okay, so as you say this, where's in your body, that 4 or 5? Chest and shoulders, okay.
And then the stomach a little.
Okay, so let's tap just on the movie title alone, Roadblock. So tap and say, even though I experienced this roadblock, I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I don't like being late.
Even though I don't like being late.
I deeply and completely,
deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I experienced this roadblock.
Even though I experienced this roadblock.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
This roadblock.
This roadblock.
This roadblock.
This roadblock.
This roadblock.
This roadblock.
Don't like being late.
Don't like being late.
This roadblock.
This roadblock.
This roadblock.
Roadblock.
This roadblock.
This roadblock.
Okay, breath. Good. That's good. Nice deep breath. So, what number are you around the roadblock this very moment?
Higher.
Higher.
The word roadblock brought up roadblocks and roadblocks upon roadblocks upon roadblocks, and it's hilarious, really, the metaphorical thing about it. It just stumped me a little. I really feel okay about the incident. It's what it brought up, and it brought up a lot of things that would be way too much for here and now. So the therapeutic effect for me is that it reminded me of other roadblocks that I haven't looked at.
Yes, other roadblocks in your life, yeah. So we'll tap on those as well. Let's tap on all these roadblocks.
All these roadblocks.
A life full of roadblocks.
A life full of roadblocks.
A life consisting mainly of roadblocks.
A life consisting of a lot of roadblocks.
And I accept myself.
And I accept myself.
Fully and completely.
Fully and completely.
Despite all these roadblocks.
Despite all these roadblocks.
Yeah. I accept myself fully and completely.
I accept myself fully and completely.
All these roadblocks.
All these roadblocks.
Many roadblocks.
Many roadblocks.
You need to take a look at them.
Take a look at them.
It brought up all the other roadblocks.
It brought up all those other roadblocks.
Yeah, I can see you trying so hard. And still having those roadblocks.
Still having roadblocks.
Yeah. All those roadblocks.
All those roadblocks.
Many roadblocks.
Many roadblocks.
And your arm. Let's just pop now on into anything else you might experience, because clearly you've gone from the roadblock this morning to other roadblocks. Is there any other? Would you like to work on another movie, perhaps, rather than that movie? That one's not the one.
A roadblock movie?
Another roadblock movie, yeah. A different movie.
Oh yes.
Okay, so was there an event that was a real roadblock for you in your life? That
Yes, and it's somewhat general. I have to sum it up.
find an event, find a piece of it, find one. If there's a lot of events, find one event that really symbolizes that.
Involves a car. Do you want me to even though it?
Even though, yeah.
Even though. Oh, geez. Even though this number 10 roadblock, my husband showing up, my ex-husband showing up and following me as I drove home from work. Even though I got into an accident that was my fault as a result of the stress of that situation, I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Keep tapping, that's good.
Even though he caused inadvertently that accident by hounding and following and stalking me. And I had to come to terms with all those roadblocks. I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though that's 22 years in the past, and my legs are shaking, and I realize I could have killed the woman in the other car because I got rattled by an ongoing roadblock. I deeply and completely accept myself.
Okay, let's tap on all the points and just pick one phrase that summarizes that whole event. Your husband coming after you, being in your car, him harassing you, you having the accident. What's one word you can use that'll keep all that alive in your mind right now?
Hounding.
Hounding, good. Even though he was hounding me.
Even though he was hounding me.
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
Even though he was hounding me.
Even though he was hounding me.
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
Hounding me.
Hounding me.
He was hounding me.
He was hounding me.
He was hounding me.
Hounding me.
He was hounding me.
He was hounding me.
Hounding.
Hounding.
Love and accept myself.
Love and accept myself.
With all that hounding.
With all that hounding.
All that hounding.
All that hounding.
Let's do the 9 gamut on that phrase of hounding me. So tap on the gamut point over here. Close your eyes and open them. Keeping your head straight, eyes hard down to the left, eyes hard down to the right, eyes in a big circle, slowly, all the way around. Good. Hounding.
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 Just follow my fingertips. I'm going to have you make a big circle, hounding.
Hounding.
Hounding me.
Hounding me.
He was hounding me.
He's hounding me.
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 Okay, the opposite direction. Hounding me.
Hounding me.
He was hounding me.
Hounding me.
He was hounding me.
Hounding me.
He was hounding
He
me.
was hounding me.
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 Good. Take a breath. Keep tapping the gamut point. Count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Again. Good. Now, on that phrase, just that one phrase, hounding me, what number are you? Let me think that thought.
My number escalated, of course.
Yes.
And it has come down from that high, but it's still high. I mean, my body is quivering.
So your legs were shaking. Yeah.
Shaking all over pretty much, internally, somewhat externally.
Right.
My heart is going fast.
So give it a number relative to where it was before. So it was...
Relative to the high?
Yes, right.
9.
Okay. So if the high was a 10, you're now...
The high went higher than a 10,
okay.
Or it felt that way.
Okay.
So if it went to 10, maybe 8, but...
Okay.
It felt big.
So it went to 10. If 10 was the maximum, what do you write this very moment?
I'm 7 or 8.
7 or 8, okay. And so your legs are still shaking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a quiveriness.
Okay, we'll just tap again, and go ahead and just tell us that story, and we'll find the emotional crescendos in that there. So, what was the neutral point there?
The neutral point?
The neutral point before he arrived, or
I was driving home from a day at work.
Okay.
And I had pulled out from work and was just on the main road that would take me home, and voila. So I saw him, and he had showed up at other places before, so it was a continuation of the hounding. And at some point I turned where I wouldn't normally turn, trying to elude him.
He was driving behind you?
Yes, and he had been. And when I came to the intersection, he had turned later and was about to go past, and I pulled out without looking at a stop sign and caused an accident. And of course had to stop, and he drove away.
So let's start with the moment when you realized he was behind you. So you're driving home from work. You weren't expecting to see him there.
No.
And then you looked in the rearview mirror and saw him, or?
I think it was a side mirror. This is a long time ago. This is 1991.
Right.
1990. I either in the rear view mirror or the side view mirror, yes, on my left. And
let's pause that moment, because that's clearly an emotional peak. So even though I saw him in my mirror, I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
Even though I saw him in the mirror,
I
love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
Saw him in the mirror.
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 Saw him in the mirror. Saw him in the
Saw him in the mirror.
mirror.
Saw him in the mirror.
Now, again, just freeze that little segment of the event. So, seeing him in the mirror, what number are you just around that little fragment of seeing him in the mirror? Let's isolate that and work on that. Let's totally down to a low number.
Yeah, because the sense is life is good. You're making a new life. Bingo. Some things haven't changed.
Right. Yeah. So that was brought up for you by seeing him in the mirror.
That's
Yeah.
still brought up every time I see him,
Yeah.
which is rare.
Yeah. So just freeze that little moment you saw him in the mirror 22 years ago. And just around that one little fragment of this, what number are you in intensity?
7.
Okay. Let's work on just that one little fragment of the moment you looked in your mirror and saw him there. just that one moment, not the rest of it, because there's a whole bunch of material here, and if you try and put it all together in a big wad, it's going to take a while for it to come down. But if you can isolate pieces of it, chunks of it, like just imagine his face in the mirror. Do you see his face in the car, or was the car itself you saw? What did you actually see in the mirror?
Him in the car.
Him in the car, okay.
Dread.
Yeah, so feeling of dread. So let's just isolate that one moment when you saw him in the car. So you're looking in the mirror, you're seeing him there. So even though I saw him in the mirror,
even though I saw him in the mirror,
even though I felt dread,
even though I felt dread,
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
I saw him in the mirror.
I saw him in the mirror.
I felt dread.
I felt dread.
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
I saw him in the
Saw
mirror.
him in the mirror.
Saw 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 him in the mirror.
Keep really focused on that moment of seeing him in the mirror.
Saw him
Saw him
in the mirror.
Felt dread.
Dread.
Felt dread.
Felt dread.
Let's do the 9 gamut on that event, just that little piece of the event. So gamut point, close your eyes and open them. Eyes hard down left. Eyes hard down right. Eyes in a big slow circle. In the mirror.
In the mirror.
Saw him in the mirror.
Saw him in the mirror.
Felt all this dread.
Felt all this dread.
Saw him in the mirror.
Saw him in the mirror.
Felt this dread.
Felt this dread.
Saw him in the mirror.
Saw him in the mirror.
Felt this dread.
Felt this dread.
Saw him in the mirror.
Saw him in the mirror.
Felt this dread.
Felt this dread.
Saw him in the mirror.
Saw him in the mirror.
Felt this dread.
Felt this dread.
Saw him in the mirror.
Saw him in the mirror.
Felt this dread.
Felt this dread.
Saw him in the
Saw
mirror.
him in the mirror.
His face in the mirror.
His face in the mirror.
Him in the car.
Him in the car.
Felt this dread.
Felt this dread.
Okay, take a breath. Good. So just that one event now, that one little piece of the event, seeing him in the mirror, what number you're just on that one little fragment on the whole?
3.
Maybe 3, okay. Okay, so let's rewind the movie now to the beginning. So you're driving home from work, and you looked in the mirror, and there he was. So go and just start from driving home from work. Start telling the story again at that point.
I was
And tap while you're talking.
driving home from work and saw my ex-husband in the car side view mirror. Saw him and didn't want to see him. Definitely did not want to see him, and he was following me. And in trying to just get away from that situation, I caused an accident. And
Okay, let's slow down more than that. So you saw him in your mirror. Did you then plan to make a turn, or you about
well,
to turn?
there was some distance on one street, and then I was getting close to home. I didn't know if he knew where I lived, but I didn't want him to know if he didn't. So I turned rather quickly prior to where I would have turned.
Let's pause there and just ask yourself what number you are around that phrase. I didn't want him to know where I lived.
I didn't want to know him to know where I lived.
I said
8.
you're a high number. Good. Okay.
He probably knew, but I didn't want to let him know if he didn't already.
Okay, so now we'll just do the whole basic recipe on I didn't want him to know where I lived. So Just that. I didn't want him to know where I lived.
I didn't want him to know where I lived.
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
I truly love and accept myself.
I truly love and accept myself.
And I didn't want him to know where I lived.
And I didn't want him to know where I lived.
I didn't want him to know where I
I didn't
lived.
want him to know where I lived.
I didn't want him to know where I lived.
Want him to know where I lived.
I didn't want him to know where I lived.
I want him to know where I lived.
Maybe he did know,
Maybe he did know,
but I wanted to make sure he didn't know.
but I wanted to make sure he didn't know.
If it was up to me,
If it was up to me,
he wouldn't know where I
he
lived.
wouldn't know where I lived.
Yeah. Okay, so around that phrase now, what number are you? Just around that one phrase.
Maybe 4.
Maybe a 4, okay. So start telling the story again from the beginning and stop me when you get to a 3 or higher in intensity. So tap, start talking about driving back from work.
I was leaving work and I saw my husband in a car behind or next to me. And continued to drive home and was addled and upset, and I didn't want him to know where I lived. And I didn't want him to follow me. I didn't want him to know anything about me. I just wanted him to let me alone.
Yeah.
And I turned rather quickly to catch him off guard so that I could get home without him knowing where I was going.
Okay. What number are you now? Around turning quickly. So I turn quickly when you say that. Are you still at low number or are you?
No, I'm low all the way.
Okay, good.
I don't.
Just stop me to hit the 3 or more.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And I caused an accident, which was very upsetting because I caused an accident.
Yeah. Let's use that one little piece
that
again.
could easily be a 3.
Yeah, okay. So even though I caused an
Even
accident,
though I caused an accident,
I love and accept
I love
myself.
and accept myself.
Even though I caused that accident,
Even though I caused that accident,
I still love and accept
still
myself.
love and accept myself.
Even though I caused that accident,
Even though I caused that accident,
I still love and accept
I still
myself.
love and accept myself.
I caused that
I
accident,
caused that accident,
and I love and accept myself.
and I love and accept myself.
I caused that accident.
Caused that accident.
I caused that
I
accident.
caused that accident.
I caused that
I
accident.
caused that accident.
I caused the accident.
I caused the accident.
I caused the accident.
Caused the accident.
I caused the accident.
Caused the accident.
Okay, so around that phrase, I caused the accident. What number are you now?
2.
2, okay, okay. So let's rewind again from the beginning. So you're driving home from work.
And saw my ex-husband in the car next to or behind me, and continued to drive home and tried to evade him, and caused an accident as a result of panicking when I saw him again. And I pulled out without looking. It was absolutely my fault. And he drove away, and I stopped and did the things you do after an accident and drove home.
Now, when you said he pulled away, is there a rise in intensity when you say he pulled away? He
Not
drove away?
anymore.
Okay. They may have been grateful.
Well, yeah, he should be grateful.
Yeah,
He should be grateful that he didn't stop
yeah,
because he might have been harmed.
yeah.
He might still be harmed.
So having the accident was a great way to take care of him, make sure he didn't get harmed.
I guess. Crazy.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it taught me something. It taught me never to let somebody else decide for me.
So that phrase, somebody else decide for me, what's your number on that phrase?
Just a good 3 or 4.
Okay. So even though it taught me not to let someone else decide for me,
No, it taught me not to let someone else decide for me.
I love and accept
I
myself.
love and accept myself.
It taught me something.
It taught me something.
Not let someone else decide for me.
Not to let someone else decide for me.
Not let someone else decide
Not
for
to
me.
let someone else decide for me.
It taught me something.
It taught me something.
Not let someone else decide for me.
Not to let someone else decide for me.
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
It taught me something.
It taught me something.
So how are you now around that phrase?
2, maybe 3, but
Okay. A little bit lower, but not a 0.
yeah, the shakiness that I had, some of that adrenaline is I feel it, so
Yeah.
it doesn't just drop off.
Right. Yeah. I feel this adrenaline.
I feel this adrenaline.
And I love and accept myself.
And I love and accept myself.
With this adrenaline.
With this adrenaline, yeah.
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
Let's do the 9 gamut on that. So tap over here, close your eyes and open them. Eyes hard down left. Eyes hard down right. Eyes in a big circle. Just say, I'm shaking.
I'm shaking.
All this adrenaline.
All this adrenaline.
All my fingers. I'm shaking.
Shaking.
All this adrenaline.
All this adrenaline.
I'm shaking.
I'm shaking.
All this adrenaline.
All this adrenaline.
I'm shaking.
I'm shaking.
All this adrenaline.
All this adrenaline.
I'm shaking.
I'm shaky.
All this adrenaline.
All this adrenaline.
I'll always be shaky.
I'll always be shaky.
Thinking about my ex-husband.
Thinking about my ex-husband.
All this adrenaline.
All this adrenaline.
I'm shaky.
I'm shaky.
My body's shaky.
My body's shaky.
All this adrenaline.
All this adrenaline.
Love and accept myself.
Love and accept myself.
With all this adrenaline.
With all this adrenaline.
Okay, so hum. Count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Good. Hum again. Good.
Some of that adrenaline is ebbing away.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So, as you're thinking about this now, so the accident happened, he drove away, you did all the things you usually do after an accident with the other person, and then when did things sort of get back to normal? Did you drive on home after that, or?
I did. I mean, and there's the tale of what happened to my car after that, but yeah, I did. I drove home and had to rent a car, etc.
Right, okay. So let's test now from the moment you began the story, driving home from work, to the time you drove home after the accident and finished all the, or you got home. You have to obviously get home without your car at that point, I'm guessing.
I was able to drive my
Okay.
car home, but I had to have it repaired.
Yes, okay. So let's tell the story from those 2 points.
Leaving work
Yeah.
in my car and seeing my ex-husband in his car next to or behind mine.
Right.
And driving home and trying to evade him, making a quick turn to throw him off the track and hoping I could throw him off the track. And had an accident as a result. And he drove away and I stopped and shared information and drove home.
Okay. So you're still a pretty low number talking about the whole event?
Mm-hmm.
Good. So let's check back now with the original event, which was the roadblock.
Today's roadblock?
Today's roadblock, yeah. What number are you on? Today's roadblock.
0.
0.
I mean, I got there afterward. It's just that I knew that it would be an event I could tap on today.
Right.
Hey.
Workshop pretty handy that way.
So.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the name roadblock, what number? That title roadblock, what number are you around? Just be saying roadblock, or you saying roadblock?
You know, there's the roadblock that I initially came up here about.
Yes.
Of course, was a 0. And there's the other roadblock that came up serendipitously, and I still feel some adrenaline.
Yeah.
So it's a little hard to
Separate
put a
them.
0 on that,
Yes.
because I feel that there's a tingly sense in my body from that. But has to be close to a 1.
Yeah. Good. And then you can explore that further too. You can look at other roadblocks in your life. What other?
Oh yeah.
We had at least one more.
I'm sure there are plenty.
Yeah. So, and now we'll sneak away. So we'll just practice that. So.
Okay.
Even though we aren't at total zero with every roadblock in your entire life.
No, we are at zero with every total number of roadblocks in my life.
I deeply
and completely
accept myself with all these roadblocks.
All these roadblocks.
Resolved and unresolved.
Resolved and unresolved.
I'm okay with them.
I'm okay with them.
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
Despite the fact there are still some roadblocks.
Despite the fact there are still some roadblocks.
Maybe one or two. Maybe 10 or 20.
Well, you know.
And I can work through them later.
And I will work through them later.
I will work through them later.
I will work through them later. I've been working through them.
I've been working through them.
Thanks to EFT.
Yeah.
Thanks to you.
Thanks to EFT. Yeah. The process is working. Yeah. And there's time for me to work through them all. There's time for me to work through them all.
There is time for me to work through them all.
Yeah.
This life or next.
Yeah. The piece of healing I've done here is enough. Yeah. Let's tap all the points again. There's time to work through them all.
There's time to work through them all.
There's time for me.
There's time for me.
There's time for my healing.
There's time for my healing.
It's time to love myself.
There's time to love myself.
It's time to release old things.
Time to release old things.
There's time to embrace new things.
There's time to embrace new things.
It's time to release all the old roadblocks.
It's time to release all the old roadblocks.
One by one.
One by one. Thank you. They're glad it's over.
So much. I was giving this demonstration on the movie technique, and I picked somebody who I thought would be a good subject because there had been a major roadblock in town that morning, and several of us were late getting to the workshop. So I thought, aha, this is a nice recent adult event, no childhood stuff here, no big trauma here. So I began tapping with her, but as I tapped on the movie title, we realized that the title intensity was not going down quickly. Normally the movie technique, you tap on the title only, and the intensity drops down quickly, or down even to a zero sometimes. Then you begin working on the movie. But her intensity on the title stayed high, and that clued me in to the likelihood that there were other events behind those. And the name roadblock, of course, then conjures up ideas of all the other ways in your life you're blocked. And I quickly realized we were working with many more roadblocks, not just the one that occurred in town today. So the client naturally then went from this roadblock to many other roadblocks, and then I had her focus on one particular event that had been a roadblock to her when her ex-husband had been stalking her. We then tapped on each aspect of the movie. We rewound to the beginning, we began tapping on the movie. The first big emotional crescendo occurred when she looked in her rearview mirror as she was driving home from work and saw her husband's car and her husband's face in the windshield of the car behind her. So the big spike in emotional intensity, tapped levels down. We also tapped on her feelings of dread. Her emotion was dread when she saw his face in the mirror. Once that was down to a low number, we then worked on other things. We worked, for example, on the phrase of him hounding her. Now I realized when she said hounding as her phrase, it was likely to not be just an aspect of the current situation. That word hounding probably branched out into dozens or even hundreds of other events which were associated with hounding, which would all have a high emotional intensity. So for that reason I then picked the 9 gamut to use, because the 9 gamut will often clean up a whole host of events, similar events, that the limbic system in your brain associates with the current event. So you think of one event, and this part of the limbic system called the hippocampus is responsible for associating current events with past threats. If it finds a match, it then sends the alarm signal down the brainstem through the amygdala and activates the fight or flight response throughout the body. So that hippocampus looking at the current event and finding a match then triggers the activation of the stress response throughout the whole body. So that word for her, hounding, clearly was a match not just for the aspect of this current event, but was also a match for dozens or even hundreds of other events through her life. Now, I couldn't go tap on all of those during the course of the week EFT workshop, so we did a 9 gamut, and that brought her number down to a manageable level for that word hounding, covering all of those events. This is really a place the 9 gamut technique shines, is when you have a whole bunch of similar events, you can quickly reduce the emotional intensity of all of them by using the 9 gamut. I also watched her eyes carefully. If someone's eyes are skipping a point, then I often have them follow my hands. I'll often have them follow my fingertips as they do the 9 gamut, keep them focused on the periphery of their vision. So if you see a client who's doing part of the circle with the 9 gamut and then skipping part of the periphery of their vision, you know they've probably got some unresolved emotional issue in that quadrant of their psyche that needs to be worked on, and having them then follow your fingertips is a way of making sure they clear up all those aspects of the problem. Once we've done the 9 gamut and got that hounding issue down to a low number, we then moved on. Now, with the movie technique, you of course have them rewind to the beginning each time and start telling the story from the very beginning. So we did that again. We had her start the story from a neutral point, start telling it again. I instructed her to tell me if her intensity rose to a 3 or a higher number, which she then did. So we were then able to work through all of the different aspects of the event till the very end of the event, after which she could tell the whole story with that low number, maintaining that low number. We then also did some sneaking away. We snuck away from the problem. We know that there are tons of other issues in her life which are roadblocks, where she feels blocked, where she felt blocked previously, that she currently feels blocked. That roadblock movie title is a metaphor for all kinds of other things in her life. And so, rather than leaving her unresolved about those things, we tapped on self-love, self-care. Just the idea that even though I haven't healed all of this emotional pain now, that there's time for me, there's time for my healing, there's time for later work on this. So rather than leaving the client feeling unresolved at the end of a session, you then work on relaxation, letting them know, even though we're unresolved now, there's time later on to deal with it, so we can pull this out of our psyche at a later date, tap on it then, and find resolution then. So having peace with it now, knowing that later on we'll get to it, and there's time for healing, time for me, time to pay attention to my emotional wounds. That's a really crucial piece of EFT. So I encourage you to use this technique to sneak away from the event, even though you know there's more there to work on. There's time later to work on it. So I use that at the very end to sneak away and help her feel as though she can go into her day and be relatively resolved with this one event and all these events for now, for the time being.